Hello and welcome to UC Today. My name is Kieran and this is the big UC update for Theta Lake. Today I am delighted to be joined by Dan Nadir, Chief Product Officer at Theta Lake. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
Before we dive into all the exciting things Theta Lake have done over the past 12 months and over the coming 12 months, can you please tell us a bit about yourself and the work you do with Theta Lake?
Yeah, so my title is Chief Product Officer. I've been doing security and compliance, particularly for SaaS, cloud-based companies for a very long time. And my role here is to work with the product management team who works hand in hand with engineering.
Perfect. And before we dive into what the future holds, we'll explore a bit of the past. What have been some of the most interesting things you guys have rolled out this year, would you say?
Yeah, so we roll out new releases about every 6 to 8 weeks. So a lot of times our customers or prospects are surprised at the new things that we've done, and so I think I have a handful of really interesting ones that people may not have heard of until now. So the big one that we rolled out not too long ago is something called global storage accounts. The problem that we're trying to solve is many firms, many customers have users who are all over the world. And in many cases, they have regulatory requirements to store that content in country. And so with cloud-based systems, right, sometimes it depends on where your content is getting stored, but we now have the ability to create special storage accounts based in different countries to support this use case. So for example, you might have users who are in America, users who are in the UK, and maybe users who are in Germany. If you want to keep that German content physically in Germany, now you can do that. So that's global storage accounts. You can create as many of them as you want all over the world. Another cool thing that we've done is we've released something called unified identities. One of the problems with cloud applications is that the identification for a given user can be different. It could be at one email address or another, or phone number. The phone number might not match exactly. It could be some internal ID. And unified identities syncs all this together. So now a customer could say, well, I don't know, I'm not sure about what email address they may have used when they logged into Zoom or to Microsoft, but I know that user's employee number. So I'm going to just type in the user's employee number. Behind the scenes, Theta Lake will match that number to all of the IDs that we have recorded for all of the platforms that user is on, and we'll be able to pull content for them without even knowing what that ID actually is. Another thing that's super cool, and you don't see it all the time, is we now unify all of these conversations. So longtime customers will know we've had something called chat replay for a while. So if you are in a Teams chat or a Zoom chat, oftentimes with other systems, you get just a little snippet of it, maybe a snippet of chat for one day. And then you have to pull in another file to see another day. We actually can dynamically merge all that. We can show you the entire chat over time, going back until the beginning of the chat. We've now made a really great advancement where we will take not only chat, but email, phone calls, text messages, and display them all chronologically so you get the full context of what those users are saying. So, Joe and Jane, we're in a Zoom meeting in the morning, and then they call each other, and then they start texting, and then suddenly they move to WhatsApp. We can actually record all of that, so you can see everything that they did from that day or for as many days as you want to track it. Similarly, we do the exact same thing with documents now. So if I have a document that comes in through chat or through email, we can tell you who saw it and if that group of users shared it elsewhere. So maybe I sent something to you in email, you put it in a chat, someone else got it in a chat and emailed it to someone else, on and on and on. We can track that history of that document and who saw it. So that's really, really important. Those two things are very useful when you're trying to sort of figure out who said what, where did these documents come from, where did they go, and all the rest of it. On the front end, another really cool thing that we did is we've added multi-language transcription. So you can tell us the language or languages that your users use. And when we pull in the transcription, will bias the transcript to that language. And so now you can have transcripts that come in that are in French, German, English, Japanese, whatever it may be. So there's a lot. On the analysis side, we do something called configuration validation, which will actually go back into the platform and it'll tell you if you've had settings that are risky, right? So perhaps maybe in a Zoom meeting, you leave anonymous logins on, right? Or you allow people to share their desktop. We'll actually provide a warning and we'll tell you, hey, this might introduce a bit of risk into your system. Actually, more importantly, though, we'll tell you when those settings change. So if you think you're locked down, you think you've got all the right policy, and someone makes a change, then we'll dynamically let you know that change has occurred, so you can revert it and get back to that level of, that lowered level of risk. And then the last one is emoji has become a big problem, right? So a lot of people will, instead of saying words, right, they'll use a bag of money or they'll use some other symbol to represent that word or phrase. And so we actually have basically embedded these emoji into our classification. So it doesn't matter if you say, I will make you rich, or you say, I will get you, and you have bag of money emoji, pot of gold emoji, that sort of thing. We'll be able to detect on that.
Cool. Yeah, that's a really neat feature. I hadn't thought about that as a possible challenge, but I guess it's something that comes up quite a lot. And moving forward, can you give us some insights into Theta Lake's product roadmap for the next 12 months, please?
Sure. So something that we actually have released, but we're going to continue to work on for at least the next 12 months is our series of APIs. So, anyone who knows us will know that we leverage platform APIs to be able to pull content in. But now we've released a series of APIs that make it easy for our customers to do a lot of different things. So they can use these APIs now to upload user information, right? So to fill in the gaps for those unified identities that I mentioned before, right? So they can send us information. They can use the API to do reconciliation, right? So they can make sure that everything we say we got, we actually delivered to them, right? And they can do it even down to a particular item. So clearly we can give them counts, right? We can say, we got 1,000 things, we stored 1,000 things, we sent 1,000 things. But they can not only make sure that is true, they can actually say, well, what about this one in particular? Like, this looks like it's not here. They can use this API and actually get that particular item or get information about that item. The other cool thing they can do is use this on, sort of the long tail of applications, right? Some of our biggest customers, customers with hundreds of thousands of users, literally have 100 different apps that they're using in their environment, right? And so some of them are well known and big, like WebEx, RingCentral, Zoom, Microsoft, etc. But some are maybe homegrown. Maybe there's 10 users, and the person who wrote this, sort of that's all that they do. Well, it might be difficult for us to build an integration to support that. But with the API, now it's super easy for them to build their own integration to support that. So they can leverage our API, write their own integration for their own custom apps, and feed all that data into our system. Similarly, they can get it all back out too. So if they want to use the API to pull content from us, right, they're able to do that. And I will mention, I talked about the global storage accounts, but remember, one of the big use cases for us is bring your own storage, right? This is where a firm uses Azure or AWS. They have their own storage, and they ask us to write all that content into their storage account so that we don't own it, we don't have it, it's theirs. If they want to build applications that sit on top of it and use it, they certainly can do that. And so all of these things work hand in hand. They can keep it with us. They can have global storage accounts for putting content in the correct geography. They can use bring your own storage, where we'll write all of this data into their storage accounts. So they own it, it's their data. Or they can use the API to push or pull content out of the system into wherever it is that they want to have it in, into whatever system they want to have it in. Moving on, I guess the big thing that we always think about are new integrations, right? So I mentioned that sometimes a firm might have 100 different integrations. Well, lots of those integrations are popular integrations, and they're platforms that everybody uses, right? And so our team is always very, very busy adding new platform integrations to the system. So with every release, we probably have one or two new integrations. There are a couple of really big things that are going on right now, and I think will be really huge going into next year. The first is whiteboard applications. So there are a handful of vendors who do this well. Lots of the main players are including whiteboards in their applications too. But what we found is, depending on what you put on that whiteboard, that could be e-coms, right? That could be something that has to be retained and supervised. And if you think about the challenge here, right? A whiteboard is not like a single email message or a series of chats. It is infinite. It extends over time. Users drop in and drop out. Content gets added, deleted, right? And so it's a challenge. And so we've worked with the major whiteboard providers to develop integrations that allow us to represent what's happening on those whiteboards and store that content so that it can be retained, and B, supervised if that's what you want to do. So I think whiteboards is going to be pretty huge going into next year. Similarly, project management tools, task management tools. We support things like Asana. We support things like Monday.com, but there are others that people are asking us for. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to add. Mobile communications, making sure that if there's any kind of mobile application, we want to be able to pull that content in just as if it was, carrier voice or text message, things like that. Social media, LinkedIn, enterprise social. We already support Viva Engage, but maybe things like Facebook Workplace, right? Those are all going to be important integrations for us. And, I think this wouldn't be a valid review if I didn't mention AI somewhere, right? So we have to get this in. Of course, this is the hot topic. And so people are asking us, well, what can you do about generative AI that gets created somewhere? And so we're certainly looking into that. And our research team is always paying attention to what we can do. But one of the things that we've realized we can do is we can leverage generative AI to make our product easier to use for our customers. So there are things like, I mentioned those chats over time. Well, what about providing a summary of the chat for a certain time period, right? What about a summary of the entire conversation? So that unified replay that I mentioned, where there's a meeting and then an email, then 2 text messages, then another meeting and then another email. Let's summarize all that, right? Jane and Johan were talking about this, and Johan mentioned that, right? And just have a complete summary, no matter what the underlying modality actually is. And then also we can leverage this kind of technology to do things like natural language searching, right? So I can say, show me all content where Dan was talking to Mohinder, where the risk level was high, and they mentioned this certain stock, right? Or they mentioned this certain project, and it triggered on collusion or some other problematic rule, right? So we'll be able to do that where I can just type all that in and get all the results out. Language support, that's going to be another big one for us. So, we can already detect and transcribe non-English, like I mentioned before. But one of the things that we're rolling out is on-demand transcription, or translation, right? So if I have something that comes in that's in German and it flags, I can actually just click a button and have it translated into English for me, right? Or whatever language. If I'm, speaking German and it's English, I can do it the opposite way. So that'll be important, as well as continuing to build on classifications that are language specific, right? So it's easy to build a classifier that's in one language, but it doesn't always extend magically to other different languages. And so our data science team has to go in and make sure that for something like collusion or material non-public information, right? Rules that are intended to show that something problematic is happening, those can now be run on virtually any language that we support, right? And then one last thing that we want to work on for the future is what's called code switching, right? So if you've probably seen lots of conversations where people switch back and forth between languages, right? I live in San Diego, so it's not unusual to see people talking in Spanish and then English, Spanglish, right? They're going back and forth. They're using mixes of words, and so code switching is the ability to say, oh, I'm hearing Spanish, I'm going to translate that or transcribe that, right? I'm going to translate it, then transcribe it. Oh, now it's English, I'm just going to transcribe it, right? And to basically provide a language or a transcription in the language that you want that is actually doing partial translation as well. So that'll be an interesting one too. And then the last bit, and there's a lot to do, but the last one that I'll mention now is just doing a little bit more in real time. So we've got customers who get nervous about what someone can do in chat, for example, and they are nervous that maybe you are exposing something proprietary. Maybe there's PII in the chat. Someone puts in someone's driver's license or a health national health number, social security number, something like that. Our goal is to be able to see that in near real time, detect what it is, and actually remove it out of that chat, right? So we've already got the ability to take these things, to analyze them, and we've got the ability to either redact in our system or remediate, actually remove them from the chat. And so one of our goals is to be able to do that, just do it in more real time. So there's a lot going on, a lot of new integrations. The team is going to be very, very busy, and plus we're always getting interesting feature requests from customers, which we try to get put on the pile and get to as soon as we can. So we're going to have a very busy year.
No, perfect. That's great. Thanks, Dan. That's a very exciting and comprehensive roadmap for 2024 and beyond. I think that's what we've got time for today. So thank you, Dan, for being here today.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share on social media, and we'll see you next time. I've been Kieran Devlin of UC Today. Thanks for watching.